for the parade of the giant doves.
It's a dream and it's a vision, it's a prayer that we may see. When every person, every creature will be treated with dignity. When every war will be a memory we never shall repeat. Our time has come, we have begun to circle the world.
Really my great pleasure to stand up here and introduce somebody who has been an inspiration to all of us. Many of us know Dr. Goodall through her work with the chimpanzees and how she has raised the awareness of animals to everybody around the world. She changed the way the world looks at animals and the way we think about animals. But her work with Roots and Shoots is really at the heart of this event. She really believes that the youth of today can make a difference through community service. And we are here celebrating peace that we create with ourselves and in the community through the projects that were displayed in the tent and in these doves. These doves represent all those projects and all those good deeds that you've been doing. So you should be very proud of those. But I know you're not here to listen to me, so it's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Jane Goodall.
Hi, everybody. And the first thing, of course, that I'm going to do is to give you a chimpanzee greeting because, well, many of you have heard it before and it sounds lovely out in an open place like this. So the chimpanzee greeting. Now, I don't know what any of you feel, but I was just absolutely amazed, excited, very moved as I watched these doves flying around. This vision of circling the world with wings of peace. It's a very powerful vision and one that's very important in this very dangerous and war-torn world that we're living in today. When I say war-torn, I mean not just the way we fight each other, but the way we're harming Mother Nature. So this is really everyone coming together here with peaceful thoughts in their heart, and it moves me. In fact, I was in tears. And the first thing I want to do is to thank all of you who've made doves, and all of you who came here and flew them, and especially John and Dar and other members of the Los Angeles team who brought this amazing event to happen with the support of the mayor. Yes. But you know, the doves didn't just happen. There was a reason behind the doves. It wasn't just saying, well, doves, it would be nice to fly doves one day a year. And we have to go back 4 years to the origin of the Peace Dove Day. It started when Kofi Annan, the Secretary General of the United Nations, made me a messenger of peace, an honor and a responsibility. And on that day, he pinned a little peace dove pin to my lapel. I'm wearing it now. And I discovered there was a United Nations International Day of Peace, which nobody seemed to know about. And I thought, well, maybe as a messenger of peace, one of the things I can do is to try and promote the idea of a peace day. But I didn't know how to do it. And then along comes a young man who'd been a member of Roots and Shoots for several years, And he made the very first giant peace dove to commemorate my appointment, along with Puppet Farms and Bob Cornett. And I want to introduce you to Matthew Hoffman, because this was the first dove ever made by Matthew. Come on. And Matthew, you may not recognize him, but he's been untrue to the doves. He's been a salmon today, but that's okay. Thanks, Matthew. So now, here we are. This is our 4th International Roots and Shoots Peace Day. And I'm not sure if all of you know, but this kind of event has been happening all around the world today. Maybe in as many as 40 or 50 countries. We shan't know until we get the reports. But many of the doves are flying in countries which are either still torn apart by civil war, or which only very recently have moved into some kind of peace. There will be giant peace doves flying in the Republic of Congo, which was torn apart by a 9-year civil war. There will be some giant peace doves in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which just had its first democratic election in 40 years, and there was no bloodbath, which we had expected. And they're flying in Burundi, which also has been part of a horrible genocide, along with Rwanda. And I won't take time to go into all the places, but any of you who know anything about Africa, let me tell you that today, a giant peace dove was being flown on the very top of the highest mountain in Africa, which is Mount Kilimanjaro. Yes. And I'm hoping that, you know, as each year we get more and more doves, don't let anything happen to your doves this year. Next year in Griffith Park, maybe we'll have 100. And all around the world, people are saving their peace doves, and young people are telling their friends, and all kinds of different groups are flying doves in all kinds of different places. And it's so moving to me. And let me tell you the rest of the vision. The vision that I had, which led to Dana's beautiful song, Circle the World, was just imagine the sun coming up on this one day, the last Saturday in September, and as it moves around the world slowly, so these giant white wings spread out, until if you were up in a satellite, you would see the white of the peace doves covering the surface of the world by morning until evening. That is the beautiful vision, and it's beginning to happen. As the song says, the time has come, we have begun, and we're not going to stop, and we're going to make this peace movement grow and grow and grow. As I'm traveling more than 300 days every year, all around the different countries, I meet so many places where people are living in fear. Sometimes it's inner city violence, gang violence, guns and knives. Sometimes it's civil war. Sometimes it's just an awful lot of political violence which can emerge into fighting. And everywhere I go to, I was finding many young people who seem to have lost hope in the future. Because it's not just that we're fighting each other. As I said before, we're also harming Mother Nature. And just imagine this. If everybody laid down all their guns, no more bombs, no more fighting between people, if we continue to damage the planet the way we are now, we couldn't remain peaceful for long. Right now we fight wars over oil. You know, we can live without oil. Every single one of us can live without oil. But we can't live without water. And the water tables all around the world are sinking, and more fresh water is being polluted by us, by our industrial, household, and industrial chemicals. We're polluting the water that we need to drink. And we're polluting the air, and we're polluting the soil. And the scientist E.O. Wilson has said that if every person on the planet had the lifestyle of an average American or an average European, we'd need 3 new planets, and we don't have 3 new planets. We've only got this one. So our Roots and Shoots program, which I think most of you know about, which is about young people around the world choosing different projects to make the world a better place for people, for animals, and for the environment that we all share. And I think it's only when every single day of your life you think about what you're doing, you think about what you eat, what you wear, how you get from A to B, how does that affect the world around me? How does it affect the environment? How does it affect society? And when everybody starts thinking like that, everybody begins to make little changes in their own lifestyle. And it's billions and billions of little changes that's going to change the world into the kind of world we all want. You know, the sad thing is that we as a human species, we're so gifted. Think of the music we can make. Think of the wonderful books that are written. Think of the buildings that are created. Think of all the beautiful things that we're capable of. This year, the United Nations Peace Day, which is a fixed day, every year it's the same, 21st of September. We couldn't go along with that because we need a weekend. We need all the parents and as well as the children to take part in festivals like this. And still, the peace bell is rung at the United Nations in New York. And the peace bell was made from coins collected by Japanese children after World War II and melted down into a beautiful bell and presented to the United Nations. So that the UN Peace Day every year starts off with the Secretary General hitting the peace bell 3 times for peace. Well, I think, wouldn't we rather use pennies to feed children rather than make them into bells? So the idea that we've had, and I'm just going to demonstrate it to you, the idea that we've had is to take metal that was used for some kind of destruction, landmines, bombs, bullets, whatever, tanks, military aircraft, and change them into bells. And so this year, I've been ringing this one. It's not particularly beautiful sound, but this is the casing of a bazooka that was used in the 15-year civil war in Mozambique. And artisans there have crafted it into this bell. And I also have a bullet from another civil war in Africa, which is much more simple. And I also have a rather nicely crafted little bell that some of you might even have seen before. And this comes from a landmine, a blown up landmine from the killing fields of Pol Pot in Cambodia. So hey, how about you guys helping? Look around for metal that was used for war. It could be metal that was used to cut down a 1,000-year-old tree, the kind of trees that Julia Butterfly is talking about. Get it made into some kind of bell. It doesn't have to be a crafted bell. It could simply be a tube hanging down on a little chain and being hit like a triangle in an orchestra. And I think that if around the world we start creating bells out of war, it's rather like creating plowshares out of swords. So I hope that next year when you gather here, as many of you will, and many more as well, I hope, that we'll hear, as the doves go around, we hear the sound of the bells. War turned to peace. It's a nice kind of vision. I don't suppose any of us could believe it happening, but it's always nice to have a vision. And my vision is, as fast as they make warplanes and tanks and guns and mines and bombs, we're going to turn them into bells for peace. And I just want to spend a few moments telling you about some of the things that we're doing to promote peace. First of all, as I think most of you know, poverty leads to violence. Either people become totally in despair, or else they become violent and aggressive. And so one of the Jane Goodall Institute's programs in Africa is to alleviate poverty, to help people who are living with nothing improve their lifestyles. And it's because we're helping people in the villages all around the Gombe National Park, where the chimpanzee study still continues. Now, instead of being kind of mad at us, you know, all these people coming into our country, and here we are with nothing much to eat, and all they care about is a bunch of chimpanzees, you can imagine they felt a bit mad. But now, because we have so improved their lifestyles, mostly by, well, the program that I believe has made the most difference is a microcredit program, so that groups of women, mostly women, take out tiny loans for an environmentally sustainable project, and then they buy into it. And we have 98% of all loans we've made in the last 10 years have been paid back. And now they feel proud. This is something they did with the sweat of their own hands and brow, and they're proud of it. Instead of having been given some pennies, they've earned them. So that's one of the things we're doing. And that leads me on to talk about a huge refugee camp that is in Tanzania. It's got 150,000 refugees from the Democratic Republic of Congo. They're kind of beginning to go back now that they've had this peaceful election, but most of them are not quite sure that it's going to be safe. So there are hundreds and hundreds of them in this huge camp. And this camp is set in the middle of a very, very, very poor part of Tanzania, where the people are living on way less than $2 a year. And there's not much chance of a good education, and many people are hungry. There's a lot of HIV/AIDS. And when the refugees first came over in their little canoes over the lake from Congo, a lot of the Tanzanians, even though they had nothing, were so sorry for them that they shared the little they had. But, you know, eventually all the refugees were in the camp, and to get there, they'd been trampling over the land. They had to cut down trees to cook food. They had to shoot some of the animals in order to live. And so the little that the Tanzanians had was even less. And then on top of that, after a while, when the camp settled down, the Tanzanians realized that within the camp, these Congolese refugees were getting better sanitation, better water supply, better medicine, better food, and eventually better schools. So you can imagine that they were a bit resentful. So we started Roots and Shoots inside the camp and outside in the big Tanzanian schools. And as much as possible, we got them doing projects together. And this meant that sometimes they joined up and did some big project. And that meant that the teachers and the parents met each other. And we've been told that after just 4 years, Roots and Shoots had done more to improve relations between Congolese and Tanzanians than any other program in the history of the place. And this wasn't done by some big international aid organization. This was accomplished simply by a couple of young Tanzanians who'd been through Roots and Shoots in their high school, and then they got jobs with us, and they went with one bicycle and eventually a motorbike into this big refugee camp and began sharing what they'd learned with the refugee children. And I'm so proud of them. And I'm so proud of the fact that this big change was made, and it really didn't cost very much money at all. That's something that's so important. So much money is wasted. And because these young Tanzanians know all about the Gombe chimpanzees, they taught the Congolese kids who come from East Congo, where there's a lot of hunting, they taught the Congolese children about chimpanzees and how like us they are, and about some of the other animals. So that when I went to the camp to visit, the children were telling me they wanted to go back to their country, start Roots and Shoots groups, and tell people over there that they shouldn't eat chimpanzees, they shouldn't eat monkeys, they were just too like us. So this is amazing. And these are the kind of things that make my heart happy. We've just begun applying the same kind of logic to some of the Native American communities living in very, very, very poor conditions, like in North and South Dakota, like Rosebud and Pine Ridge. Some of you may know those names. There too, we have got programs going within the reservation and outside, and we're hoping that some of the horrible discrimination will go away and that the lives of the people in the reservations will improve just as they have around Gombe. So those are the kind of things we're doing, and many, many other. Some of you went around and looked at the projects that are displayed here by just a few of California's refugee groups. We now have a brand new, we have youth leadership, Roots and Shoots youth leadership councils. We have one that's kind of middle and high school and one that's university. We have regional councils. We have national councils. Soon we shall have international councils. And these young people, when they get together to brainstorm, I mean, they're changing the world. I know that Chase Pickering's here, and I think there are some other youth leaders. So this is one of my real reasons for hope, these young people all around the world. We just had our first international gathering of Roots and Shoots leaders, mostly adults, in Holland about a month ago, with representatives from 19 countries hearing about what Roots and Shoots is doing in those 19 countries. And remember that there are groups in a total of 96 countries around the world. It's just that we haven't got institutes there to service them yet, but nevertheless, the groups are out there, rolling up their sleeves like all the young people here, choosing their projects and getting out and doing them. They are changing the world every day. And yes, there's a lot of quite young people here today. And as I'm looking around, thinking how we've harmed the planet since I was their age, I feel great shame for my species. And I feel a kind of anger. And it's that feeling that led to Roots and Shoots. This is why I'm so passionate about it. And because when I was growing up in England, it was World War II, there were bombs falling. Many nights we had to be woken up from our sleep and go into a bomb shelter. Bombs dropped close enough to crack the glass in the window. Many people I knew were killed. And so of course I'm passionate about peace. We all are. There isn't one single person in this beautiful gathering of people that doesn't want war to end. And it's the same wherever you go. We, the people, don't want fighting. We don't want war. And that's why, as the International Roots and Shoots Peace Day grows, gathering in families and friends, and ever more doves flying, and ever more relationships being built between the different ethnic groups in the different communities, and ever more outreach to those groups in other parts of the world, that's what's going to lead to world peace. And can we one day look towards a world at peace? There'll always be squabbles. I mean, think of your own family. You love your family, but you still have, you get mad sometimes. That's always going to happen, because we are all human after all. But the sort of wars where warplanes go out, and innocent people and children are killed, and whole cities are blown to pieces, and wonderful, beautiful works of art from the past are gone forever, and millions of lives are lost. That's got to stop. It has to stop. And so this is why I'm always moved when I'm in a gathering of people like this, because I know you all care. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. And it's as more of us care and think carefully about things we can actually do. Nothing violent, nothing unthought out, but just thinking logically about what we do, how we live in peace with ourselves and in our communities, how we can reach out and perhaps help a peace process in other parts of the world, like the UN peacekeepers, for example. These are the ways of thinking that one day is going to lead to world peace. And I personally as I travel around the world, I truly feel change. And I know there's a lot of violence right now, and I know there's a lot of problems. There's massive poverty and social injustice. But at the same time, more and more people in the elite societies seem to be looking for a new way, seem to be trying to find meaning in their lives. And once that happens, and they start opening their eyes and their hearts to the appeal of those who are less well off, this is when we start to see society taking a giant step forward. And I'll bet you, 100 years ago, if you'd asked certain people, will there ever be a time without slaves? They would have said no, so we'll always have slaves. Well, you don't find them here now, do you, anymore? Thanks to some of those wonderful people who fought for civil rights. And there was a time when people thought in England that women would never vote. There was a time in England where women and children were down in the coal mines working for long hours every day, and Victorian ladies in their coaches threw pennies to the beggars to make themselves feel good while leaving the abject poverty behind. Those are the things that I believe are changing. And I can say that honestly because of all these travels around the world that I do. And I come back to end where I began, that it's not enough just to think of peace in terms of no more fighting between people. We must think of peace as us learning to live in ever greater harmony, not only with ourselves, but also with the natural environment, with Mother Earth. And it's all of these things that Roots and Shoots is all about. So, I'll end up with one last story, which some of you have heard, but I'm going to tell it again for all of those of you who haven't. It's about a chimpanzee who was born in Africa. His mother was shot when he was about 1.5 years old, because that's the only way you catch a young chimp, by killing the mother. And he was shipped off to a zoo in North America. For about 10 years, he lived by himself in a cement cage, very small, with iron bars. He was named Jojo. And then a new zoo director decided to create a huge enclosure. He wanted the biggest in North America. And he put around it a moat filled with water because chimpanzees don't swim. And he got other chimpanzees till there was a big group, 20 altogether, introduced them carefully to each other, sorted out their dominance ranks, and then finally all of them were let out into the enclosure. And everything was fine until one day, one of the young males challenged the senior male, and a young chimp in a dominance display tries to make himself look as big and aggressive as he can, and he bristles his hair, and he stamps with his feet, and he slaps with his hands, and he sways branches, and he sways from foot to foot, and he hurls rocks. He just makes himself look real dangerous. And in this way, he may improve his social standing. Well, the male he was challenging, the senior male, was none other than Jojo, who'd lived all these years alone. And if you're a young chimpanzee, just like a young human child, you have to learn how to behave. You don't, it's not like an insect coming out of an egg and being able to go through its whole life cycle without seeing another insect except for mating. And chimpanzees are just like human children. So poor old Jojo, here he is with this bristling young creature, and he's absolutely terrified. And in his fear, he runs into the water. He hasn't had a chance to learn about water either, except you drink it. And he was so frightened that he got over the railing built to stop the chimps drowning in the deep water beyond. He disappeared under the water. 3 times he came up gasping for air, and then he disappeared again. And luckily for Jojo, on the far side of that moat was a little group of people. And among that group was a man called Rick Swope, who visits that zoo just 1 day a year with his wife and 3 little girls. And he jumped in, even though the keeper who was there grabbed hold of him, tried to stop him, told him that Jojo weighed 130 pounds, was strong and potentially dangerous. Rick pulled away. He swam, feeling under the water, until he touched Jojo's body and managed to get this 130-pound dead weight over his shoulder. And he could feel slight movements. Jojo wasn't dead. And so he managed to get over the railing, pushed Jojo up onto the bank of the enclosure, turned to rejoin his slightly hysterical family. There was a woman there with a video. She doesn't remember filming. She was very frightened. The film's all over the place. But you can see and hear what happened next. First of all, the people on the bank begin screaming, Rick, to hurry. He's going to be killed. They can see three of the big males coming to see what the commotion is about with bristling hair. And at the same time, Jojo is moving back towards the water because the bank was too steep. And the film all over the place amazingly steadies and holds still on Rick. And you see him standing there with one hand on the railing. And you see him look up to his wife and kids. You see him looking up to where these three males are approaching. And then you see him looking down at Jojo, who's just disappeared under the water again. And for a moment, Rick was motionless. And then he went back. And again, he pushed Jojo up. And this time he stayed there. He's sliding in the mud. He's pushing as hard as he can. Jojo is making feeble efforts to grab something. And Rick ignores the screaming people and the approaching chimps. And just in time, Jojo grabs a thick tuft of grass, and with Rick pushing, manages to pull himself up to where the ground is level. And just in time, Rick gets back over that barrier. That evening, that little piece of film was played across North America, and the then director of the Jane Goodall Institute happened to see it, and he called up Rick. He said, "That was a very brave thing you did. You must have known it was dangerous. Everyone was telling you. What made you do it?" And Rick said, "Well, you see, I happened to look into his eyes, and it was like looking into the eyes of a man. And the message was, won't anybody help me?" And you see, that's the look that I've seen not only in the eyes of little chimps for sale in the African markets, looking out from under the frills of the circus chimps with their cruel training, looking out from the prisons of the medical research laboratories of 5-foot by 5-foot cages. But I've seen it too in the eyes of these children who've seen their parents killed with ethnic violence. I've seen it in the eyes of inner city kids caught up in gang violence. I've seen it in the eyes of the homeless. And once you've seen that look and felt it in your heart, you have to jump in and do your bit. And that's my greatest reason for hope today, my greatest reason for hope for changing this downward spiral of the planet that we're seeing today, and my greatest reason to hope for peace, that although there are problems all around the world, environmental problems, social problems, problems of violence and war, I do believe every single place where there's a problem, where there's a social or environmental injustice, there's a group of passionate people doing their best to put that right. They're often working for little or no money. They're risking their health. They're actually risking and sometimes losing their lives. They are legion, and they're my heroes. And you heard from some of them today. And there are tables out there which describe some of the social injustices in California and some of the environmental issues in California that people are working to try to put right. So that's my big hope for the future. And I think for all of us, we just have to realize the time has come to take matters into our own hands. It's no good expecting the politicians to do anything until enough of us support them so they'll be re-elected if they take tough decisions. We can't leave it to the big corporations. We can affect how they operate simply by not buying things from them if we don't like the way they're made. So that's it. And I want to end up again by thanking all of you who've made giant peace doves and come here today to join us in this celebration of the peace that lies within the human spirit. I'd like to thank there's some staff and board members at the Jane Goodall Institute here. There's a whole legion of students and teachers taking part in Roots and Shoots, and parents as well. And so I want to thank each and every one of you, and please take away in your hearts something about the beauty and the peace of this wonderful day. So again, Thank you all.